This is really cool. So let's sneak into George's liver. I don't understand pathways from that, but this is a liver. You're getting fatty liver. George is eating the fat. You're getting the fatty liver now that your liver is getting enlarged. So you start having fat accumulation within the hepatocytes. You get more fat, triglyceride accumulation, and this is the underlying pathophysiology of fatty liver. Not everyone gets NASH, but some people get inflammatory response, and you have recruitment of inflammatory cells, and these inflammatory cells started releasing cytokines, and you started getting this inflammatory mallow in the liver, and this is when you start getting NASH in the liver. And that leads, the inflammatory response leads to activation of stellate cells, myofibroblast, and you see this fibrotic liver starting to form. And look at it, George's liver is getting more fibrotic, and eventually he's gonna get cirrhosis. Let's look into options. Dr. Yonasi is gonna talk about FXR. So this is the FXR receptor right here. Its nuclear receptor, this is the bile acid in green, comes bind to it. And then you get that co-activator in yellow, remove the co-repressors, and stimulate these nuclear receptors. And that leads to the activation of the bile acid receptor. The bile acid receptor regulates bile acids. Bile acids, we used to ignore it back in the days. We talked about 20 years later, and then now it's coming back. We learned that it regulates lipid metabolism, it regulates glucose metabolism, and tons of data showed that it's very, very important fatty liver. The FXR agonists reduce fat, reduce inflammation, and fibrosis, and that's their role. So those are FXRs. Let's look at others. So now you have this, let's talk about other mechanisms. You have fatty liver, you get inflammation, and now I'm gonna talk about PPRs. You actually start having fat accumulation in the liver. And one of the PPR receptors' missions is to regulate fatty acid oxidation. So here you're within mitochondria, and the PPR receptors, alpha and delta, gets activated and oxidize free fatty acids. And those are when they are effective, the alpha and beta. But let's look when they are defective. What happens to the free fatty acid oxidation? Nothing is happening. Those are defective. So the free fatty acid accumulates in the liver, and you start getting fatty liver and hepatocytes accumulation, and looks at the PPRs. When they're defective, you get fatty liver and eventually inflammation as well as fibrosis. I told you about FXR and PPAR mechanism. Let's look at another drug mechanism, CCR. So again, fat accumulation in the liver, that's how the process starts, George. And then within the liver, after the fat accumulation, the CCR2 and CCR5 gets activated through their ligand. And they're starting activating other cells, inflammatory cells, different kinds. Those are Kupffer cells. Kupffer cells start maturing and maturing. And then they release CCL2. And this secretion start recruiting other sites. This one, the blue one, is like, hey, monocytes, come. I want you in the liver. And start pulling the monocytes to the liver. And the monocytes also mature into macrophages. And the same process you saw earlier in the liver. Macrophages and other inflammatory cells start releasing cytokines, and you get this inflammatory mallow in the liver, and that eventually leads to fibrosis, and you get this NASH and fibrotic liver.